Good evening, brethren. Today, I'm going to share with you a lesson entitled Squid Game, taken from scripture text Matthew chapter 19, verse 30. Today, I have to record this presentation because uh, I'm engaged in work, and as much as I wanted to skip work and be able to join in the in Devo session today, but I can't as the meeting is a compulsory uh, and also an important meeting for me. As such, I am not able to join in personally, so that is why I'm recording this presentation earlier at 2:30 in the morning. So I'd like to apologize for not being able to present this lesson personally myself, as in it has to be done through recording. Well, today I chose the title Squid Game because a Squid Game it's something that has been viral in the society in these few months. A lot of people has been talking about it. Even children has been talking about it, and also um, malls and also TV advertisement, games, and all these things has been in relation to Squid Game. So actually, what is Squid Game all about? Sorry. Actually, Squid Game is a series revolved around a contest whereby 456 players who are in deep financial debt put their life at risk to play a series of children's game for the chance to win a 45.6 billion won prize. Yes, this series was filmed in Korean and was in Korean language. So the price for this Squid Game was 45.6 billion won. So the title of the series actually draws from a similarly named Korean children's game. So the author or the director had actually conceived the idea based on his own economic struggles during the early in his life, as well as the realizing the class disparity in South Korea and the capitalism in the country. Though he had initially written this series in year 2009, he was unable to find a production company to fund the idea until Netflix took an interest around 2019 as part of the drive to expand their foreign programming offerings. Now, Squid Game was released worldwide on September 17, 2021, to critical acclaim and international attention. It is a Netflix most watched series to date, reaching the top view program in 94 countries and attracting more than 142 million member households during its first 4 weeks from launch. So it's indeed a, a very viral and very what you call that a very interesting movie to watch, even though it's a little bit violence. There's a lot of violence in this movie, but then again, it's a most watched program in 94 countries. So, what are the games that that they played in this Squid Game? So, actually, games played in this Squid Game are called the first of all is called the Dakji, which is a pork game where you're supposed to hit the other coin or other around thing, and then you have to flip it when you hit it with the other coin. So if you're able to flip it, then you will win. So the second items in the Squid Games was marbles, the marbles that we used to play when we were younger, and of course the next one would be the honeycomb candy, which is also very viral nowadays. You can find it in cafes, you can find it in many eateries that they actually sell these honeycomb candies, which is called PUBG in Korea, and the red light green light game. I think most of us have played this game before, and of course the tug of war, and also glass stepping stone bridge, where you step on the stone bridge and cross to the other side. Last but not least was the highlight of the game. Is called the Squid Game. Now, Squid Game is played on a field that has an outline with two circles, one at the top and one at the bottom, a triangle that intersects the circle at one end, and a square intersects the other. Children are divided into two groups, the offense and the defense. Once the game starts, the defense can run around on 2 feet within bounds, while the offense outside the line is only allowed to hop on 1 foot. But if an attacker cuts through the waist of the squid, outpacing the defense, he or she is given the freedom to walk freely on 2 feet. After preparing for the final battle, the attackers actually gathered at the entrance of the squid, which is about at the triangle part. In order to win, the attackers must tap the small closed off space on the squid's head with their foot. If the defender push you out of the squid line, you die. Of course, that death was only metaphorical when playing as a kid. Well, in Squid Game, uh, if you lose, you die. Now, this Squid Game is actually very similar to our very own game called the Gala Panjang. So, a game which I played a lot during my childhood days. Gala Panjang is very similar to Squid Game. Now, if you can see the blue color dot, those are the offense, and the red color dots, those are the defense. So the people need to pass through this obstacle, and the defense need to defend their line so that none of them will be able to pass through. If all of them able to pass through, then they will win the game. Now, it's actually very similar to our version of called the Gala Panjang. I wish Squid Game wasn't that gory and violent, so that people of more ages could watch it. This show encapsulates the essence of the time that we are living in right now. Other than having to deal with the nagging virus, we are also dealing with our mental health, wealth, and purpose in life. This pandemic has hit the pause button and gave us time to reflect and ponder upon what is going on in our life. This popular Netflix series has also forced us to think about our values and the way we perceive money. This begs the infamous question: does money make the world go around? And what can we learn from this Korean inspired game, the Squid Game? I know that this show is rather violent, and if you take a watch at the series, it would rather be a little bit unbiblical. But then again, I believe that in every shows or in everything that we do, we can always draw lessons from it, and we can always relate it back to the Bible. So some of the lessons that we can learn from this Squid Game. Lesson number one: the strong doesn't always dominate, right? I kind of like the fact that in Squid Game it reveals the the belief that we as human, um, we are like we are all humans. So when we play a game, doesn't the strongest and the fittest of all survive in a game? It isn't always the case in life and for Squid Games too. So in this game, we see both extremes, the young and old, men and women, highly educated and not so highly educated ones are grouped together. So our society today favors the young and highly educated ones, but they don't often do not emerge as winners in the game. Now during the game of tug of war, the team with women and old folks actually won the game. In fact, later we come to know that a poor common man won the Squid Game. So it can only shows that the strong don't always win in life. The last can emerge as the first, as stated in Matthew chapter 19, verse 30. Many who are first will be last, and many who are last will be first. So, in relation to the Bible, if we look at in First Samuel chapter 17, the story about David and Goliath. David was just a small shepherd boy. How is he going to be compared to Goliath? Goliath bearing his armor alone already weight 5,000 shekels, and his spear iron point already weighing 6,000 shekels, and he is so huge. And David just went in and fight him with pebbles and a shepherd staff. So in this case, from the viewpoint of the world, David sure lose to Goliath, right? I mean, Goliath is so strong. There's no way David can win. But with God's help, you can see that David uh, able to defeat Goliath. So sometimes the strong does not always dominate and win. What about in the story of the wall of Jericho depicted in Joshua 6? So in this story about the wall of Jericho, the city itself is basically impenetrable. It's impossible to get into the city because it was so securely barred by the wall. But then again, when the city is so strong, but then again, with God's help, the wall collapsed and the city was defeated. And that that are the lessons that we can learn, uh, that the strong doesn't always dominate. So we need God's help. So the second lesson that we can draw from this Squid Game is money doesn't fill up the emptiness in our life. Like how one of the player put it in the show, the rich are bored and they just want to have fun, so they created this Squid Game for those in debt to join. It's clear that money can't buy you happiness, not at least in the long run. What fills that emptiness in humans is our relationship with the Heavenly Father. Time and time again, all these life experiences and stories point us towards God. With guidance from the Lord, you will know how to steward money and put it to good use for the benefit of all. In Luke chapter 12, verse 15, it says, Then he said to them, Watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. Of course, in Luke chapter 21, verse 34, it says, Please take heed to yourself, lest your hearts be weighed down with carousing, drunkenness, and cares of this life, and that day come on you unexpectedly. In Proverbs chapter 23, verse 4 to 5, it says, Do not overwork to be rich, because of your own understanding. Cease. Will you set your eyes on that which is not? For riches certainly make themselves wings. They fly away like an eagle towards heaven. So if we look at one of the clips that I actually took from the news cutting, it says that the depression on rise in elderly population, especially in the states. Um, Here, one of the elderly person said, "My son sent me enough money, but every time only money cannot help me to get out." Most of the elderly people often suffers from emptiness syndrome. So they have money, but it's just that the money does not fill up the emptiness in their life. Now, what about this fashion designer, Kate Spade, or his real name, her real name is Catherine Noel Bushnahan. So, this lady, Kate Spade, took her own life, and she was only 55. So, um, and what about this? The person in the picture that I show on the right, the celebrity chef Anthony Bourdain, and who also committed suicide when he was only 61. He committed suicide in his hotel room in France. So these people are famous people, had achieved great things in their life and has a lot of money, being celebrity, being a designer, for example, Kate Spade, almost the whole world people are using her design, her bags, her designs. you know Money is not an issue, but then again, with that kind of money, it still does not fill up the emptiness in their life. And I guess that caused them to resort to suicide. Now in Hebrews chapter 13 verse 5, it says, "Let your conduct be without covetousness, be content with such thing as you have, be content as such thing as you have. For he himself has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you." Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verse 10 to 16. "He who loves silver will not be satisfied with silver, nor he who loves abundance will increase. This also is vanity." If you continue to read on, it will say that when good increases, there increases who eat them. So what profit has the owner except to see them with their eyes? So in verse 14, "But those riches perish through misfortune, but he begets a son when there is nothing in his hand. As he come from his mother's womb, naked shall he return to go as he came, and he shall take nothing from his labor which he may carry away in his hand." So, as this is also is a severe evil, just exactly as he comes, so shall he go. So, just like the Chinese saying, you can't bring your uh, riches, can't bring all your money to coffin or to the underworld, or so-called, just like the Chinese saying. There's a Chinese saying says that 钱帶唔落棺材. So so basically the money does not fill up the emptiness in our life. Is our relationship with God, okay, is our um, time spent with God, that itself will fill up our life. Will So Brother Micah also shared a lesson in the previous Sunday sermon. So sometimes if you see a person, as sometimes you see successful Christians and also so-called successful Christians most likely will not be very rich, mainly because they actually spend their money doing good and trying to help others. So so as per what my brother Michael says, that they spend a lot of money helping others. So and they don't keep the money to themselves. They don't heat up treasures. Uh, as per like what the Bible says, you don't build another barn for your treasures and all. So and most of this time, if you see a successful Christian, most likely he will not be very rich because he used all his fortunes to help others. Now, the next lesson that we can learn from the Squid Game is wisdom is all you need in life. Wisdom, not money, is what you need to excel in life. We can see how this was demonstrated when one of the players suddenly thought of a brilliant idea that helped him to win the Dalgona candy game. He shared his game strategies with his team, which allows them to win the tug of war, even though they do not have the strongest member in their own team. So choose my instruction rather than silver, and knowledge rather than pure gold. For wisdom is far more valuable than rubies. Nothing you desire can compare with it. Proverbs chapter 8, verse 10 to 11. In 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 1 to 15, and 2 Chronicles chapter 1, we can see that Solomon asking for wisdom from God. He did not ask for riches, he did not ask for uh, anything else, but he asked for wisdom. And along with that, God is so pleased with Solomon, and God, on top of the wisdom, God actually give him even more, give him riches on top of the wisdom, because he chose wisdom. Now, Proverbs chapter 16, verse 16 also mentioned how much better to get wisdom than gold. To get understanding is to be chosen rather than silver. So, when we read Proverbs chapter 3, verse 19 to 24, it started off by saying that the Lord by wisdom founded the earth. By understanding, he established the heavens. So, wisdom is indeed uh, very important, and with wisdom, you can actually find riches. In Proverbs chapter 8, verse 18 to 19, riches are honor are with me, enduring riches and righteousness. My fruit is better than gold, yes, than fine gold, and my revenue than choice silver. So, as you can see this, if you have wisdom, you will know that gold and silvers and rubies are not as important as the spiritual relationship with our Lord, with our God. So these are for our relationship with God is for eternity, but golds and silvers will not last for eternity. Now, the fourth point that we can learn from this Squid Game is our life, or your life, or our life is actually worth so much more than money. What really interesting about this Netflix series is the choice given to each of the participants in the Squid Game. They have the choice to join back the game in one part of the series to win the gold pot of the money. But interestingly, most of them choose to join back the game knowing that they may ultimately lose their own precious life. So, do these people think that their life are worthless, so they would rather gamble their life away and give themselves a shot in life? So God has sent his son to die for us because he loves us. You are more precious than anything else in the eyes of our Father in the heaven. In Galatians chapter 2, verse 20, I have been crucified with Christ. It's no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And the life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. Now, I would like to share, beside Netflix, I would like to share one of the interesting story that I think most of you have come across. Now, this man, as a man, sat at the metro station in Washington, D.C., and started playing the violin on a cold January morning. He played six Bach pieces. Bach is a composer and a music composer, a very talented one. It's very famous. So he played six Bach pieces for about 45 minutes. And during that time, since it was rush hour, it was calculated that thousands of people went through the stations, and most of them are on their way to work. Now, 3 minutes went by, a middle aged man noticed there was a musician playing. So he slowed his pace, stopped a few seconds, and then hurried up to meet his schedule. Minutes later, the violinist received his first dollar tip. A woman threw the money in the till and, without stopping, continued to walk. A few minutes later, someone leaned against the wall to listen, but the man looked at his watch and started to walk again. Clearly, he was late for work. The one who paid the most attention was a 3-year-old boy. His mother tagged him along, hurried, but the kid stopped to look at the violinist. Finally, the mother pushed hard enough and the child continued to walk, turning his head all the time. Now, this action was repeated by several other children. All the parents, without exception, forced them to move on. So, in the 45 minutes the musician played, only 6 people stopped and stayed for a while. About 20 gave him money but continued to walk their normal pace. So he collected about $32. When he finished paying and silence took over, no one actually noticed it, and no one applauded, nor there was any recognition. No one knew that this violinist is actually Joshua Bell, one of the best musicians in the world. He played one of the most intricate pieces ever written with a violin, worth $3.5 million. If you can see in the picture, there he is playing the violin at the subway, and another one, uh, picture on the right, that shows him holding a Stradivarius 300-year-old violin that cost $3.5 million. Now, this musician Joshua Bell, 2 days before he played in the subway, he actually played in a theater in Boston, and for and averagely one of the tickets cost about $100, and now he plays for free in the subway, but no one's actually spend time to listen to him for free. Now, this is a real story. Joshua Bell actually played incognito in the metro station, was organized by the Washington Post as part of a social experiment. So, one of the possible conclusions from this experience could be, if we do not have a moment to stop and listen to one of the best musicians in the world playing the best music ever written, how many other things are we missing? So, if you can see from the beginning, people are missing the good things because they are chasing, they are in rush for work, trying to find, I would say, maybe going to work, find a living, meeting clients, getting more money, and they have missed out a lot of good things without realizing that they actually have missed it out. And the only people that who actually appreciate all this are the children, in this case of Joshua Bell, because children, they are very innocent. They, and they know it's good stuff, and they actually stop and they actually listen. But the only the parents will keep on rushing the children to, move on, and without realizing that actually they have been missing all the good stuff. In this world, we are chasing for uh, our goals, and we are chasing for our career. We're chasing our career, trying to climb the corporate ladder, and in the midst of doing all this, we actually missed out a lot of wonderful God creation. For example, a beautiful sunset in the evening, the a few minutes time that we spend strolling around the neighborhood with our family members, listening to the bird chirping in the morning, and enjoying the flowers blooming. These are the small things. These are the God's creation that magnificent God creation, magnificent. You know, sometimes you see that the sky is like so beautiful, especially during sunset or sunrise. But we miss all this. So just take a note that our life is worth so much more than money. So we should reprioritize our life. So in Matthew chapter 6, verse 19 to 21, it says that do not lay up for yourself treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thief breaks in and steal. But lay up for yourself treasure in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. In 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 6 to 12, now godliness with contentment is great gain. So godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out. Just like what I said earlier on, just like the Chinese saying, 錢帶唔落去棺材, you can't bring all your riches to your grave. So the Bible also says this, for we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we cannot carry anything out. And having food and clothing, with this we shall be content. But those who desire to be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and harmful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil, for which some have strayed from the faith in their greediness and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. Albert Einstein said it well. I quote, not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted. The choice is ours. There's more to life than money. Last but not least, the last but not the last lesson that we can learn from the Squid Game is there is good in everyone. For God created man in his own image. Man actually, there's how bad you are, right? There is something good in you. So if you look at the slides that I shared here, the the infamous gangster or so-called Botak Chin, some people know him for a very famous gangster in Malaya during that time, or is he famous because he's a gangster or because he's a Malaysian Robin Hood? I think many of us know that this story about Botak Chin. Botak Chin sometimes will distribute the loot from his robbery uh, and and uh, and the proceeds from his vices to poor people, to ice cream sellers, to people who he sees are not doing well, and he would distribute all his ill-gotten gains to these people. So so some people will consider him as Malaysian Robin Hood. So what about the guy on the right? Libya under the Gaddafi rule actually had free healthcare, free education, free housing, and no national debt. Even though under the Gaddafi rule, Libya was the human rights violations were gruesome. But then again, um, under the Gaddafi rule, the literacy rates actually improved a lot, and they, he actually take care of his citizens by providing free healthcare, free education, free housing, and everybody has no debt. The nation itself has no debt. So underneath all human evil's intention is a pure heart of gold. There's good in each of us because the spirit lives in us. Even even in the Squid Game, one of the player cares about winning the lottery only, but how much he's into winning the lottery also, or he gamble, he show kindness towards other people, and in also another one of the character who stole money, uh, and had a white collar crime from his client. I mean by stealing some money from his client, also show a caring side when in the series, he show a caring side, whereby he actually loaned some money to another people, yeah, in the game. So what about this guy, Ted Bundy? Ted Bundy is the most famous serial killer. Actually, help other people on suicide hotlines. So can you imagine a famous serial killer actually help people on a suicide hotline? He, on one hand, he's actually killing people, enjoying killing people, but on the other hand, he actually saved life by taking their calls on the suicide hotlines. So he actually used his manipulative personality in convincing people that they should continue living. So just like Hannibal Lecter, he also helped the police in catching notorious serial killers as well. So um, the last one would be this guy on the right is, of course, everyone know him, Saddam Hussein in Iraq, and how bad he is, but he still give free hospital visits to all Iraqis. So in Romans 3:23, it says that for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. And in Ecclesiastes 3 verse 12, I know that there is nothing better for people than to be happy and to do good while they live. So we as Christians, we should practice Matthew chapter 5 verse 16. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. I believe there is so much more that we can learn from this Squid Game, and in this Netflix show about this Squid Game. But today I have chosen only this few to share with all of you. So it's no doubt this series is a very thought-provoking TV series, and I hope that today everyone, I've managed to share some of the lesson learned, and I hope that everyone can take back a little from this series. Thank you so much for lending me your ears, and over back to the governor or moderator for the Q&A session. I would like to apologize that I will not be available for the Q&A session, as I will be away for a meeting, and I will let the governor or other brethren to take the Q&A. Thank you so much for your attention.